everyone, so this is Andrew from Wild Wild Weiss. Some of you may know me by the name Slowbro if you are in our Discord or if you watch some of the Wild Wild Weiss podcasts. Today I played at our WGP qualifiers at Sentry Box Cards and got first place with a Student Council of the Capo build. So I kind of wanted to do like a deck profile. I'll go over how to play the deck and the general strategy behind it, and I'll talk about my matchups today at WGP. So I played, like I said, Student Council de Capo, and it's a deck that recently got new cards from the release of the Capo theatrical stage booster. So the deck structure kind of changed up a little bit. I'll talk about how the new cards affect the deck and what are some strengths and weaknesses of the deck and why I played it. So starting off, Student Council DC, it's hard to describe the deck in one term. It does many things. It has access to healing, it can set up power walls, it can play the damage rush game, it can memory compress, it can do a lot of different things. And I think what you decide to do really depends on, one, the flow of the game, how the game is going, and two, the matchup that you're playing against. So to pilot the deck well, you really need to know what to do in a lot of different situations, because there's not like it's going to be hard to be successful with the deck if you just want to follow like one straightforward game plan. That's what I'll say about it. With the release of the new cards in the theatrical booster, I think it gave the deck a lot of solid tools. It has more of a fallback plan if your primary level 2 strategy doesn't work out. And all the cards are just, they don't fix the deck's weaknesses, but they are impactful and they come up very often, so I am pretty happy with them. Alright, so to start off with the level 0s in the deck, first we have 4 of this Rika. So I think this is one of the best cards in the deck. No argument, you have to play 4. It's one, part of your memory engine, 2, helps you mill through the deck, and it's also a hand filter card. So what it does is on play you can discard any Climax and play a costless character from your waiting room equal to or lower than your level. You can also pay 1, send it to memory to top 4 for a Student Council or use people character. So this hits almost every character in your deck with the exception of a few. Like I said, it fills your memory, it helps you get through your deck, and the discard Climax is very good early game to help you hit your Climax combos and just for overall consistency. It's also a discard out, like if you draw too many Climaxes, it's a good way to get rid of them. So yeah, no arguments, you have to play 4. The next card I'm playing at 4 for level 0 is the level 0 Schwarz. So this is in here mandatory 4 as well, because 1, it's yellow fix in the deck, which is very important since you play a dual color level 1 setup. It's free memory, so it's the only card in the deck that doesn't have to spend stock to go to memory, although it is RNG. So it's when it's reversed, you can check the top card of your deck. If it's Student Council trait, it goes to memory. And it also has an alarm effect, where if it's near a clock, you can put another yellow card in your hand to retrieve this from your clock at the start of your main phase, I believe. That was the timing. So, yeah, very good. The next card I play, I think, yeah, it's a 2 of. So I played 2 of this Rika Savage Ricky. I see a lot of lists playing 4. I don't like to play 4 of this because 1, it makes you have awkward mulligans, because you always want to discard a salvage target for this if you have access to this, and sometimes that isn't always ideal. And number 2, it's very slow. It has to get reversed to do the Ricky effect. It's not an on play, so people can play around it or not let you get the effect. And like, I don't really want to use the effect after level 0 or level 1 most of the time, like 99% of situations, so I don't really want to draw into it later on in the game. So I'm pretty happy with playing 2 of this. It is nice early on to keep up hand size though, especially if you open like a subpar hand. The next card we're playing is 3 of the Charles. This Lou Charles. So it's a vanilla 2/5 clean cut. I think one of my wishes for the deck is I wish this card was better because the clean cut profile is so powerful in this deck, especially with a card like this where you can, if you have the clean cut, you can swing with this, kill something with your clean cut, and then pull this back to use the pay 1 cent memory effect next turn. It's just so powerful, nets you so much advantage, but the fact that this is a 2/5 body makes it hard to get reverses sometimes depending on what cards your opponent's playing. So yeah, I wish this card was better, but for the purposes of this deck, you do still have to play it. It's, if you can pull it off, it's just way too good. And again, it's yellow fix for your dual color level 1, and yellow is generally the harder color to get because most of your cards are like red. So yeah, 3 of the clean cut. You could like play 2. There's a Student Council Zozo that's 4K if you have 1 or less other characters. You can play that profile as well. But just some power level 0, so you're not sandbagging the entire level 0 game. Next up, I'm playing 2 of this Brainstorm. So it's Student Council trait. When you play a Climax, you can give something 1 key power, which is very nice since this deck at level 1, level 0 doesn't have very high power levels. And its Brainstorm effect, you can salvage any card regardless of trait. So that's very nice since we're playing some off trait cards in the deck that this card can grab. Only 2 because you can search it, add it very consistently, and you don't always need it. And then the last level 0 we're playing is 1 copy of this Charles. So it's a Revenge 1/5. And so when your other character gets reversed, you can give another character 1/5 power, and you can pay 1, tap it to give one of your characters, if they reverse your opponent's character, salvage. I'm only playing 1 of this, and the reason I'm playing 1, I have to go deeper into the deck to explain, but basically with the new booster set, actually I'll come back to it. We have to get to some other cards before I explain why I'm playing 1 of this. But overall, there's 16 level 0s, so as you can see, this deck does not play a high amount of level 0s. 16 is kind of like a standard bare minimum line, and this deck does want to open multiple level 0s. For example, 1 to generate stock and 2 to generate memory, because this deck is quite stock heavy and you need cards in memory to fulfill your deck's engine and to get compression. So one thing to think about is when you mulligan, how greedy are you? A lot of times, even if I have cards I want to keep, I find that it's better to discard them to try to find my 0s, because this deck does a lot of hand fixing, a lot of salvaging. You can always get those cards back later. But if you don't open 0s and you have a weak early game, it can be very difficult to recover from that. So, yeah. And the reason why I'm not playing more 0s is because this deck is also very tight on space. It's a very greedy deck. So you have to be really smart with your mulligans, the cards you decide to keep, the cards that you throw away, and every card can matter. So you have to be very good at managing your resources. Next, moving on to the level 1s. So first we have 3 of the Swimsuit Anzu. So Swimsuit Anzu and the Xylophone event are on the ban list. I'm choosing to play the Swimsuit Anzu in this list because 1, I do not play any EP healers. If you are familiar with the deck at all, the level 2 general game plan is to summon out your 3/2 Otomes from the anniversary set, which are hexproof and make your field very big, but they do not heal on play. So at level 2, you are free to clock this card, draw 2, and it's going to be a free heal. And if you stay at level 2 for multiple turns and you have more than 1 of these, you can keep clocking it every turn, and it's a free heal. Compared to the Xylophone event is very good, but it costs 2 stock, and this deck is very stock heavy. 1, to get out your level 3s, 2, to pay for their effects, and while you're doing all that, you have to pay to mill through your deck, you might have to pay for free fresh. There's a lot of stock costs in this deck, and this is a free heal compared to the xylophone. It also has a crit trigger for your choice triggers, so that's very nice. Next we're playing 2 of this Aoi. So I'm playing this Aoi because 1, it gives front assist hand encore, and hand encore in this deck is very crucial because this deck's level 2 game plan to summon the level 3 otomes is only threatening when the level 3 otomes are backed by these hand encores, because it allows your otomes to keep reviving themselves if your opponent has it out to them, unless they get anti-change bombed, which is kind of the bane of the level 2 game plan. But if they don't get anti-change bombed and your opponent just runs them over, you can keep them around forever just by discarding cards through hand encore, so that's absolutely crucial. The free fresh is nice, it does come up, although it is stock heavy, but if you have to use it, you have to use it. And the third reason is because, like I mentioned previously, some of the new cards in the deck, namely this new level 3 finisher. So this level 3 finisher, it does have Student Council trait, but for it to use its finishing effect, you need to have 2 other newspaper characters on your field. So my idea behind the deck is I want to have these characters that I can keep in the back row that have newspaper trait. So this one's Student Council and newspaper, but generally you'll have 1 brainstorm at the back and then 1 of another back row. So either this or this card. And this card, like I said, combos very well with the hand encore by giving it to your level 3 otomes, and it has newspaper trait unlike the Student Council Global Hand Encore. So I switched out the Student Council Global Hand Encore for this newspaper assist hand encore. Because for this level 3 combo you need 2 other newspaper characters, so generally what you'll have is you'll have 2 of these, and then you'll have 1 of this or the 1 Charles in the back row, and that fulfills the condition for 2 other newspapers to use the Climax combo effect. So this card is blue. With it, I will say it can be hard to play it out at level 1, and that's because at level 1 you're already playing a dual color level 1, because you're playing the Rika combo, which is a red 1/0 that combos with a yellow choice climax. So you're already yellow red level 1, and this is blue. So a lot of times you can't play this at level 1, but that's fine because you mainly need it for level 2 when you're trying to get out your level 3 otomes, like I mentioned before. And it's a lot easier to get 3 colors at level 2, especially if you level yellow, level red, or level red then level yellow, and then you clock this for your blue at level 2 to use the alarm effect. So while this is still in clock before it heals, you can play down this from your hand. Another way to get this out is with this effect, right? This effect, you can discard a climax, summon this out from your waiting room, don't need color requirement. Okay. So, quite an important card. Then next we're playing 2 of this card from the Anniversary booster. So it's Anniversary newspaper trait. If during turn, if you have a card in memory, it gets 1/5 power, and when sent to the waiting room, you top 3 for a newspaper or Anniversary character, so it hits a decent amount of the deck. I'm playing this because it's the only costless mill this deck has. Every other mill option you have costs stock, and like I mentioned multiple times, stock is a precious resource in the deck, so having access to free mill and also just a generic good costless beat stick is very important. So really glad that I played these, and yeah, they performed very well today. And then next, obviously, we're playing 4 copies of the level 1 Rika combo. It's on attack salvage with the choice trigger. You can salvage a character whose level is equal to or lower than number of cards you have in memory. So generally, you want to try to get at least 2 cards in memory when you use the Climax combo, because most of the time you want to salvage this card. This is level 2, so you need 2 cards in memory to salvage it off your combo. You can also grab it off your gates and choice triggers, since it does have a soul trigger. So this is kind of the backbone of this game, of this deck's level 2 game plan. It's a 6/5 Climax combo. When you play the gate Climax, you can salvage this specific level 3 Ultimate from your waiting room back to your hand, and it gets 5k power. And during Encore phase, if it's rested, you can pay 1, discard 1, send this card to memory to summon this otome from your waiting room. So this is how you get access to these otomes at level 2. The huge power gain that it gets from the Climax combo is very good because it lets you break boards. And with how standby heavy the meta is, this card pressures standby decks very hard. If you get hit to 2 first, this completely breaks level 1 standby boards. If they're at level 2 first and they get set up, what I do with this is a lot of times you don't have to use the change effect. You can play to get more stock, so you can just hard play your level 3s when you hit level 3. But this is still swaying over most standby walls, and you pressure them to either discard cards for Encore or like to use a backup or something. And you can honestly, if you have the Encore hand Encore assist, right? If you have this thing from the hand Encore assist, you can Encore these and just keep using the Climax combo to get power and to beat over your opponent's boards. So yeah, excellent card. And you want to be grabbing this most of the time off your level 1 combo. You generally want to have 2 of these in your hand when you hit level 2. I'd say 3's a bit greedy, but if you have the resources, it can be very strong. So yeah, just a good generic level 1 combo. Good selection, but low power. Yeah, level 2 card like I mentioned. And then the other 2 level 2 cards I play are these 2. So one is additional blue fix for hard playing your 1-0 hand Encore assist if you need to. This is a anti-change sat counter, which is the only backup I'm playing the deck because the deck's really tight on space, and I just figured this was the most useful one. It's off trait though, so to salvage this you need to get it off your triggers or your brainstorm can hit into this. Has come up a few times, and I'm playing one anti-damage counter. It's not a card that you'll be using a lot of the time because this costs 3 stock and you compete for resources to use this or to use your finisher effects. And if I'm not going to die, I would rather conserve my resources for my finishers than cast this. But it's a nice option to have in the deck, and it's blue fix as well. So just 1 of copy. If you need it, you can hold it when you see it most of the time, so not a big deal. And then moving on to level 3s, like I said, kind of like the backbone of the deck is this level 3 Otome. So what this does is you can get out at level 2 with the changer. If you have 4 more cards in memory, this gets plus 1k power and is hexproof, which gets around a lot of random cards that you may play against that target, like target minus soul, like wind triggers for people that try to bounce this, stuff like that. And then if it's in the front row, it gives all your characters in the front row plus 1/5 power. So if you have 2 of these with nothing else, they give each other 1/5 power, and it also affects themselves, so they're sitting at 13/5, which is pretty annoying for your opponent to get over. If you have them in front of the hand Encore assist, if they do run over one of them, you can just discard cards to Encore it back and then pressure their board next turn, right? So very strong. The last effect it has is both player turn. When you reverse your opponent, you can pay 2, ditch 1 to burn 2. Generally, you don't use the burn until you're going for the kill because you need to maintain resources to keep your deck in a good state and to heal and stuff like that. But yeah, very strong card. This is kind of like your deck's main game plan. However, I will say it is important to know when you can't just rely on these to wall your opponent at level 2 and how to be flexible around that. Sometimes you just have to eat the loss, try to gather stock, keep up hand, and try for a level 3 push if you can't win the board. So this is not like a end all be all by any means. It's just the primary game plan, and you will have to adapt for certain matchups. The following level 3s, actually, yeah. So the next level 3 we're playing is 4 of this. So this is a new card from the theatrical booster. It's on play heal. If you have 2 more cards in memory, it gets 1k when it attacks. Your opponent cannot play events. So this deck can completely play around like any event like anti-damage, sat counter, or anything, because when this attacks, they can't play events. And then this card is hexproof, so they can't really do anything to this. On attack with the same trigger as your level 1 Rika combo, it's on attack, pay 1, ditch 1, you get 3000 power, and your opponent burns 2 damage. So it's pretty good. You can think of it as like it's a healer in the deck that also happens to have a finishing effect. I wouldn't say the focus of the deck is to get off the finishing effect, but it does come up quite often, and it's pretty reliable. If you don't happen to find the CX, it's okay to just use these to heal down and to press damage against your opponent with these automates, because these don't need a climax to use their burn effect. And then the last level 3 we're playing is one of the Schwarz. So this is also from the new booster. It's a 2k assist to characters in front, and then on play you can pay 1 to stock swap your opponent, and it's both student council and newspaper trait, which is quite good. This didn't really come up today at all. I didn't play this today, but when I was playing test games and when I was playing at locals, I used this quite a few times. So if you ever see your opponent being greedy with a lot of stock, or you know they have a bunch of CXs left in a small deck, this can just be game winning against your opponent in those situations. And of course, for Climaxes, we're playing for the choice trigger that combos with the level 1 and the level 3 Rika, and then 4 of the level 2 Otome gates, right? 4 and 4. My one wish for the deck would be, it'd be nice if we got a CX swap, because a lot of the deck relies on you drawing the right CX at the right times, so that can be frustrating if you don't get those, but hasn't been too bad. There was only one game today where I couldn't find this combo at level 1, but it was in a matchup where even though I had lost a lot of resources, I got out my Otome level 3s and my opponent couldn't answer them, so I slowly gathered up my hand after that. This deck, I think, even though I won today, I want to say it's not, if you play this deck, do not expect it to be like an autopilot super powerful deck that will win you games. I think this deck gets exposed easily in matchups against like the top meta decks, for example Simple Gear, Daily Live, Kaguya, Mushoku, those decks. This deck, like I said, gets exposed because one, those decks pressure your resources super hard. Against Simple Gear, even though you're compressed, their finishers pretty much ignore compression because it's Mocha and they can push you turn after turn after turn, so it becomes really quickly, what it comes down to is a damage race where you just try to kill each other, and their finishers cost barely any resources while your finishers are expensive. So that's pretty rough. And the meta standby decks like Love Live, Mushoku, they can easily contest your level 3 Otomes. So in those matchups you have to know, one, can you protect your Otomes, and sometimes even if you can't, it's okay to still get them out because you can hand encore them. But then if you're low on resources, maybe you can't do that, so you have to maybe conserve resources for a level 3 push. So yeah, against those decks, this deck can struggle, but it has really good matchups otherwise. And for decks that can't answer your level 3 Otomes, it's like generally pretty free, assuming you don't brick. I think this deck isn't an easy one to play because, like I said, everything in the deck costs resources. Everything costs stock, and because you rely so much on hand encore and discarding cards for your level 3s, like every card in your hand can matter. A lot of times when you end the game with this deck, you'll find that you'll just have enough stock or just have enough discards in hand to close out the game, and there's like very little room for error, right? If you waste cards in one way, if you waste stock another way, it can end up punishing you very hard at a later point in the game. So if you're confident in your resource management when playing Weiss, then definitely give this deck a try. It will suit your strengths, and well, it's a very fun deck in my opinion to play, and obviously I had a successful run with it at WGP. As for my matchups today, first round I played against 8 Standby Slime. I think the player I was playing against was not very experienced with the deck. I think he borrowed it just because it was a meta deck, and he couldn't really pilot it well enough to bring out its strengths. so I took down that matchup really easily. My second opponent, I played against Symphogear, and like I said, that matchup, what it comes down to is the moment both of you hit level 2, it's just a straight damage rush. There's no way you can like play defensive and compress against Symphogear. Um, like their finishers are just too free and they disrupt compression really well. So you're just punching each other, slugging at each other back and forth to see who dies first. And luckily, I managed to kill off my opponent when they were at 3-1 and I was at 3-0. On my turn, I managed to game them, so I won that. Then my third match was against Zombieland Saga. I wasn't quite familiar with what that deck did, but I don't think the deck had anything that really answered what the Capo wanted to do. So it was quite an easy matchup to play, and it just came down to who canceled better, who like made better decisions, had better compression at the end, and I was in a pretty strong spot for most of that game. Game 4, I played against Grisaya, and I will say Grisaya's a pretty tough matchup for this deck because they have anti-heal, and a lot of your cards are revolved around healing and compressing your deck, so those cards are turned off. However, the silver lining in the Grisaya matchup is that they cannot answer your level 3s at all. They cannot contest them in any way except for an anti-change, like an anti-EP bomb. That's the only way they can contest your level 3s. So instead of spending resources to heal, I got out my level 3s, I sat on them, and every opportunity I got, I used my resources, my stock, my hand to push damage, to burn, to keep on pushing that damage. And since you're constantly low on resources, like stock, you're not scared of stock swap. And it like similar to with what I said about Symphogear, it comes down to a damage race. But since you can't heal, you're free to use all your resources to push the damage you need. Then the last game I played against Love Live Sunshine. They were playing a Guilty Kiss deck. I think the last game was the only game where I bricked, but like I missed level 1 combo. I dropped down very low in hand size, but my opponent couldn't answer the level 3 Otomaze, so I built back up from that, and there was one turn where I managed to push him to level 2 to level 3, and he didn't heal down at level 3, instead opting to use his resources for his finisher, which didn't kill me, so I was able to end the game the next turn. Yeah, so that was my tournament report and deck profile. Hope you enjoyed that, and yeah, like with all the reprints this in the stage booster, this deck got a lot more accessible as well. Feel free to try it out. I think it's very fun. I enjoy this deck a lot. I've been playing it for a long time, and the upgrades are very welcome. Like I said, just be careful when you play the deck. It's not an autopilot easy win deck. You really have to know how to manage your resources and what you can and can't do in each matchup, especially against the top meta decks. And yeah, thanks for watching. Shout out to Calgary, Sentry Box Cards. Come check out our blog at Wild Wild Weiss. There's a YouTube channel, there's a Twitter channel, we do podcasts, we do interviews, we have a bunch of different articles on the blog, wildwildweiss.wordpress.com. And also shout out to Kila, who's an active member of the Weiss community, part of Strictly Broken TCG, and he plays at our locals and is a good friend. Yeah.